This is a video I found, a rare time where I'll agree with MTG.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, you remember her, she's just been spewing out, like, racist, like, just ignorant stuff. But because she's not funded by APAC, she can actually speak out her mind when it comes to those
Considers the
guys.
defense appropriation bill today that cost the American people $831 billion. It's important to talk about that this is the funding for our great men and women serving in our military and our nation's defense. The Department of Defense's mission statement is to deter war and ensure our nation's security, and that is worthy of the American people's hard-earned tax dollars. However, the American people are $37 trillion in debt. So this is money that is being spent that they already don't have. My amendment would strike $500 million in funding for nuclear-armed Israel's missile defense system. And it's important to phrase it that way. Israel is a nuclear-armed nation, which is very capable of defending themselves, and they have been proving that so as we've watched on the world stage. The U.S. already provides Israel with $3.8 billion annually in foreign aid. $3.8 billion, that's a lot of money. Additionally, the April 2024 security supplemental included $8.7 billion for Israel. That is nuclear-armed Israel. And during the recent 12-day war, the U.S. used 15 to 20% of our terminal high-altitude area defense missiles stockpiles defending nuclear-armed Israel, which cost us over $800 million. The $500 million provided in this bill will fund Israel's, that is nuclear-armed Israel's, missile defense system, the Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow system. Yet Israel is a nuclear-armed nation. That's a pretty big deterrent for any of their enemies. Any nation that has a nuclear bomb has the greatest threat against their enemies. USA typically accounts for 15 to 20% of Israel's defense budget, even though Israel, nuclear-armed Israel, has universal health care for their citizens and subsidized college for their citizens. They're able to provide that. However, here in America, we're $37 trillion in debt. My amendment to strike $500 million in foreign aid will ensure an America First Department of Defense, and that is exactly what we need and we haven't had for a very long time.
Very progressive of her, huh? Because what she's basically implying is that first we send too much money to an already nuclear-armed state, which I forget, she said like 15 to 20% of their defense budget comes from the U.S., which is our taxpayer dollars. But she also implied that they already have health care and was it education?
Mm-hmm.
And so is she saying that we need health care and education here? Because that's kind of how I took it.
I think that's what she's referring to. I think a lot of the maybe populist or more centralized conservatives, if you want to call them on the spectrum, have been crying out for at least some more attention towards how we treat the average day American citizen, whether that being education, that being healthcare, that being housing. We're having a huge issue in all of these realms of the country, and I think it's very nice to see that we all kind of are agreeing on these topics needing to be looked at with a little bit more care instead of just shipping out these dollars to Israel.
That's like the populist supporter belief, right? Like the populist, whether you're Republican or you're Democrat, the populist belief is that we should be funding more to our citizens here and getting more benefits from the government here. And not to the extreme where you're like living off the government, but just like basic stuff like education, health. But all the actual like self-proclaimed populist Republicans still voted for massive funding to Israel, the Iron Dome, and their attack weapons, right? At least the majority of, if not all of them, the only one I can't think of is Thomas Massey, who voted against it. but most of them voted for not only the big beautiful bill, which cut all these government programs, but also to fund Israel. So they can claim whatever, but at the end of the day, the vote is what matters. And they've betrayed they, including I think Marjorie Taylor Greene. 'Cause I didn't hear that she voted against it, the big beautiful bill.
I don't think she did. I don't think
Exactly. I don't think she did. I have to fact check it. Maybe we can add that. But if this is all just talk, if she still ended up voting for it either way. But one thing is like kind of how like Cheng says like take your wins.
Mm-hmm.
If she's actually going up and saying this, she makes very good points. She delivered it in a very clear manner. They are nuclear armed. She made sure to emphasize that illegally, by the way, because they have to register it. They have to get it approved by the council. But they stole nuclear weapons back in I forgot what decade it was, but it was the last century. And since then, they've had an illegal nuclear arms program that no U.S. president has been able to contain, and they completely deny it. Meanwhile, they're over here accusing everyone in the Middle East of having a nuclear power or potentially having nuclear power to stabilize the country. I don't think that's fair. I think it's very shady of them. Their government, not their people.
If I'm thinking correctly, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was Thomas Massey and the senator from Pennsylvania, Fitzgerald, were the only two that voted against the big beautiful bill. But it's good to see that we're coming to an agreement, and I think the agreement is Israel. The big problem is Israel. And however far you want to look back or you want to throw conspiracy theories, there's a lot of thoughts on how far the hooks have been in our government, but I think everyone's coming to wake up to the fact that we're being controlled by a foreign entity, and over the past few decades we've seen the effects of this and the effects of our country becoming less and less of what we'd see as one of the great world powers. I mean, one of the best first world countries that we have here in the world is not able to take care of its basic population. And that's something that's really surprising to see, and really something that shouldn't be an issue at all. With the amount of power, the amount of wealth, the amount our GDP continues to grow, it's something that we need to address.
Yeah, well said. I think what they're calling it, at least what I've seen, is the noticing, or the great noticing. Where all of a sudden, like everyone, or at least a lot of people in the U.S. are starting to kind of notice, like, why can't we speak up against Israel? Why is Israel like funding all our politicians? Why do a lot of our politicians have an Israeli guy with them at all times? Why is it like everyone's starting to notice it? And people have been like claiming this stuff for decades now, and for the most part, the majority of the media was just like, oh, they're crazy, they're hurt, they were wronged, and they're just speaking out because they feel some type of way. But now that we're seeing this, what, even though they're denying it, what is a clear and obvious genocide, starvation of a specific group of people simply based on religion and race, we're really seeing beyond that and seeing, okay, why is it that we're sending them so much money? Why is it that we're continuously funding against the American people's will? So like all the representatives and senators who voted in favor to continue to send money, to continue to supply money, to continue to steal pretty much from the American people, they should all be voted out next time you get the chance, because they don't really represent you. And they don't even try to hide it. I mean, in a different interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene, in a different interview with Tucker Carlson, she said because she was the only one not funded by AIPAC in her state, she's going to get primaried. And she's already anticipating that. I think the only way you beat that is to actually represent the people, which is why she's probably becoming more populist. She's actually trying to coordinate and actually align her views more with the people instead of saying like racist, ignorant stuff all the time. So at least we have that.